to another video on the FF Scout YouTube channel. This will also be available as a podcast if you are listening over there. Welcome. Today, it's another video in our FPL Champions series. So today I'm joined by Adam. Adam, you were one of the elite band of FPL champions back in the 2018-2019 season. You were victorious. Can you tell us a little bit about that day and what it was like for you?
Right. Well, that day was night for me.
Of course, because you're in Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, New Zealand, actually.
In New Zealand. That's right. And so it was the middle of the night. It was about the last match had started about 3 a.m. here. I could find precisely one friend to come over and watch the games with me because everyone else had to work. It was a Monday, so the early hours of Monday morning. It was a work week. So with my good friend Norm, we watched the games out, and that gave me the win. And then New Zealand news media were very excited about this whole thing because, of course, everyone likes it when someone from their own country wins something global. And so I had my first interview on the radio at 7:30 a.m. So I got about 2.5 hours sleep, I think. And then it was straight into a day of media interviews, mainly with New Zealand, because it was a big deal here. And so it was just a blur. And then the next morning, they wanted me on a breakfast TV show, and I had to be up at 6 a.m. to go to the studio to do an interview on TV the second day. So the first 2 days was just an absolute blur, and it was a big deal in New Zealand for the media.
Was it one of those that you were, because you were kind of the runaway champion that year, so were you worried about it? Like, was there a, going into that day with your friend watching it or in the middle of the night, were you thinking this was the likely outcome, or were you still kind of like, could second place, could I have a nightmare here? Like, was that still a part of your thinking?
I think it was, because like logically, rationally, I think, I had a decent lead, and it was really incredibly unlikely to get caught. But of course, you sit there and you don't know what's going to happen. You wait for your captain to play 30 seconds and sprain their ankle or something, and so you don't know what's going to happen. And I didn't have Salah as my captain, and a lot of people did, so yeah, for me anyway, I was still a bit nervous, and I do remember that when Salah was substituted, that's when I thought, okay, it's for sure now, I've got this, because the rivals captain was off.
And I was talking to Ben the other day, and he was talking to me about how for him, live FPL and rank changes weren't really a thing at that point. So he was there doing the maths manually, trying to work out whether he was the winner or not. Yeah. By the time you won it, was it, I was trying to think, when did live FPL become a thing? Like, was that something that was part of it when you came in, or were you also sitting there thinking, this second place is this many points behind, what are they on now? And were you kind of having to do that manual process as well?
I was, but I think I was a bit luckier because I did have quite a good lead going into that final round. And so I knew I didn't really have to, I knew like if certain things happened, like it would require, a real blowout of opposition captains or whatever. So I knew that, frankly, unless Salah decided to score 5 goals, I was okay, but that might have happened. You can't be sure until it's over.
You had a good lead, so you weren't so worried, weren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think things were different then. We didn't have as many of those live things then. But also, to be honest with you, when I first took the lead, overall world lead, I didn't think I'd win, genuinely. I just thought, this is really great. I'm number one for a while. I am just going to enjoy 1 week of it.
Yeah.
That'll be the best thing ever. And So I really, I kind of luckily, I didn't really change anything. I didn't start looking at the near rivals and working at what they had and trying
Mm,
to match them and all that kind of thing. I just thought this isn't going to last, because realistically, probably it wouldn't
yeah.
last, you know? And I just carried on really playing just the way I had, really without any regard to worrying about the team in second place or third place. And I just carried on every week, honestly, genuinely, honestly, until the second to last week or so, thinking I won't maintain this, I'll get caught.
Amazing.
Um,
Do you think that's the reason why you won it? Because you stayed true to yourself rather than trying to play what everyone else was doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's the reason, at least, why I wasn't worrying in that last week, why I had a good lead, because I just carried on. I would not have been sad to lose the lead, except for, to be honest, obviously the last week I really wanted to win the last week or two. But well, eventually you do. But yeah, certainly for a number of weeks, I would not remotely have minded if I'd been caught. I would have just enjoyed the fact that I had been number one for a few weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Because I think that's the thing. Like everyone says, oh, I really want to win FPL, but the reality is actually just being number one, being able to take that screenshot of the app that says
Yeah.
you were number one for 1 week, like that's actually a dream come true in itself, isn't it? So to then go on, maintain
Absolutely.
the lead and win the whole
Yeah.
thing overall is a phenomenal achievement. Let's talk about the changes that FPL have made this season
Yeah.
because it's quite large. I mean, I think over the last few
Yeah.
seasons, there's been odd changes here and there, and obviously last year was quite a big one with the mystery chip that then became the assistant manager chip. But this year, we've got a lot of changes. The doubling of the chips throughout. So you've got one for the beginning and one for the end of the season. The AFCON additional transfers, the addition of the
Yeah.
defensive contributions. What are you making of all of those, and has it impacted the players that you've been looking at?
Only a little bit. I haven't built my team around the extra chips. I think I've never really worried too much about that. I've just focused on the first week or the first couple of weeks. The one that I have taken into account is the defender contribution.
Mm,
Um, and there really is, one player I've picked basically because maybe everyone's doing that now. You got to have it. You feel like you got to have at least one that you've picked for the defender contribution.
yeah.
Um, and that might not be right, but yeah. So I have like Qua, is it, in my team?
Mm.
Yeah. And pretty much, but would I have had him if not for the defender contribution? No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Mm. And I think that's the
Probably.
thing, isn't it? It is making you just think about things slightly differently. Like I know for me, often with my fifth midfielder, I'm kind of like, oh, well, I've picked this one
Yeah.
because there's some attacking threat there. Same with the fifth defender. Like last year, I was all about Leif Davis because there was some attacking threat. This year,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
finding myself like
Yeah.
I'm drawn to the centre backs because I think, well, there's more chance they're going to pick up a couple of extra defensive contributions than there
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
my random wing back is going to get a goal. He might get one every 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 weeks, but
Mm.
the defenders, the centre backs, they might pick them up
Mm.
every other week. And if you're regularly churning over 4 points from a 4.0 defender, that's
Yeah.
pretty much a dream
Yeah.
come true for FPL managers. Let's
I
talk about.
guess. I mean, what would make
Go on, no, sorry, carry on.
Oh, so
No,
go on.
carry on.
Because, well, I was just going to say, like with everything, we've got a lot of everyone's published stats on last season's defenders and what they would have got. But, you'd probably want to see 5 years worth because things change.
Yeah, yeah.
Every team changes, players change. And we really don't know how it's going to play out this year. Look, I too have got a player for defender's contribution, but will the same players get attract the same bonuses this year? Probably not. We'll all be rushing to get the new
Shiny new
defender
toy.
contribution king who turns up.
You can go on the FF Scout members area. We've run the data back for 7 years now. So
Oh, you
obviously,
have. Okay, great.
yeah, so that's quite cool. And I think obviously for some players it's less helpful, because if they've only been in the game for a year
Yeah,
or two, then you just get a couple of years
yeah,
worth of data. But for the old guard, the ones that have been around for a
yeah,
long time, the likes of Virgil, for example, obviously you
yeah,
can
yeah,
see
yeah,
it not just at Liverpool but in the time
yeah,
previously also. So yeah, worth going over to the Scout members area if you're a premium member and having a look at that data, because like Adam says, I think it will really help to make those decisions and make sure it's not just oh well, Tarkovsky got loads of points last year, so I must have
yeah,
him.
yeah,
It's then being able
yeah,
to check back and go, well, is that still the same across the seasons
yeah,
previous? Let's talk about your 15-man squad then. So you've
yeah.
kindly agreed to give us a run through of where you are at the minute, so let's talk about them. Who have you got?
This is so at the minute, and I really feel like I'll be coming back to it in the hours, or the, not long before deadline,
Mm,
and really re-looking at everything, particularly because we're seeing a lot of uncertainty about some of these forwards and whether they'll move teams, and there's a whole lot of kind of like dominoes that could consecutively fall.
yeah,
And we talked about this earlier, but it really does feel unusually, particularly for the forwards, uncertain this year.
yeah.
Um, so I suppose the first thing is I haven't actually gone for Salah in my squad. I've
Ooh,
got Haaland. Yeah, I'm not saying that's correct at all, but I'm simply, seeing that Haaland has started previous seasons very, very strongly,
yeah.
and he has done that consistently, and so I'm banking on him doing it again. So that's a risk. Which way do you want to go, from the front or the back, or what's
Let's
easiest?
start with the forwards, like, because I
Yeah.
think you've got
Forwards, yeah.
Haaland. So who have you got alongside him?
So I've got Gyökeres there. Yep, I guess there's a lot of uncertainty whether he'll produce the same amount of goals. But actually his all-round performance is pretty strong, and he's been in the Champions League, and he, looking at him, his performance and his statistics, like, it seems to me he might be more of one of those forwards that's a bit more like Giroud comes to my mind, actually, as one who's a
Mm,
big presence in the penalty area, who sometimes drags the play wide. Perhaps he might end up providing assists, often, and holding up the ball, feeding it through, providing space, but getting goals himself because he's the big man up front. So I think there is good potential for him, but he's new to the Premier League, and we've all seen players who are new to the Premier League and it hasn't come off at all.
yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, you sometimes get a Premier League newcomer like Haaland was, who suddenly,
Yeah,
bangs straight
yeah,
away, and others it takes them a
yeah,
while to settle. So I
yeah,
guess we're going to find out with Gyökeres as to whether he's going to
yeah,
be one of those that hits the ground running or not. But it's a great price
yeah.
point to have, even if it's not the right player eventually.
Yeah, and either I'll be selling him along with millions of others, or everyone will be buying him, and we'll
Correct.
find it pretty quickly. Yeah, and then Strand Larson alongside, just for the value. I mean, his first up match is against Manchester City, um, but at this stage, he's there. I would have been looking to fit Wissa in
Mm,
if it wasn't for the current extreme uncertainty.
yeah.
And I may still yet be jigging things around to do that, depending on what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So no Salah in the middle.
Nope.
Who's in there then?
So we do have Palmer.
Okay. So there is a premium
So
midfielder.
there's a premium, safe, obvious pick there. Um, Chelsea do have very good games up front.
Mm.
And so I do have him there. And I have also gone for Wirtz. So I've taken the risk. I've got two of these incoming players who've got all the big raps on them. And we'll see. But again, it looks to me like he is genuinely someone who, we've seen this so many times, so I'm not quite sure why I'm saying it again. But I think Liverpool is an extremely good team, like
Yeah.
absolutely out there team, and he is a very, very good player who's coming into an incredibly well functioning team with a very good manager. So I don't think I haven't got him in to cover for Salah. You know what I mean? I've just got him in for himself,
Yeah.
and I'll either be proud of myself for picking him or selling him like crazy or wildcarding.
I
Yeah,
think
we'll
he's
see.
a really good pick. I can't see it being a bad pick, this one. I think he'll be really good. Who else is there?
then it gets a bit more dodgy. I've got Sarr for Crystal Palace. He did very well last year, perhaps unexpectedly. Um, but I don't see why he couldn't produce that again.
Mm.
I think he is a good player, and he has shown he can perform. And I didn't feel like what he did last season was a blip. It felt to me like he is a decent budget pick. And then the most one you're going to go at me for, I think, on this one actually, Sam. I've got Dwight McNeil.
So do you know Dwight McNeil is one of my favourite players? So
Right.
I have a bit of a soft spot for Dwight McNeil. I had him last season, just before his injury, when he was
Right.
phenomenal and he was just
Yeah.
regularly returning points, and nobody had him.
Yeah.
He was such a great
Yeah. Yeah.
differential, and then
Yeah.
he got
Yeah.
injured, and I was most upset because obviously then I had to sell
Yeah.
him and all of that.
Yeah.
But he proved to be
Yeah.
a great differential, and I'm kind of interested by this one because obviously Ndai is the popular. He's
Yeah.
kind of the popular kids Everton pick, isn't
Yeah.
he? Like he seems to be the poster boy for Everton at the moment. But I like Dwight McNeil. I think there's a decent amount of route to points for him, and comes in that
Yeah.
little bit cheaper.
Becomes a little bit cheaper. I'm a bit of a fan of the stats. I do look at XG and
Yeah,
expected assist as well. And he's actually pretty outstanding on the expected assists, and
yeah,
you can kind of understand why. And I think if he did hold on to a good, if he was able to play a number 10 type role and he was able to do his stuff and didn't get injured, and it's all these ifs. I've just said three ifs,
yeah.
which is, probably not the greatest way to start your fantasy football year. But that's the one probably I'm taking a risk on, but he's not expensive, and I think there is potential there, which of course. So that's my hope. And then my fourth midfielder is just Ramsey, Burnley Ramsey, just cheap. My whole bench is just cheap as chips.
No bench boost planned in game week 1.
No,
No, no, that, and I think a lot of managers seem to be ending on that now. I've been backwards and forwards for weeks on whether to bench boost or
right.
not. I think eventually I've decided I'm not going to, because there's too many sacrifices by building a great squad. It means you can't have the likes of Palmer, and obviously I like you, I think he's a really good buy for the early part of the season. So yeah, there's definitely risk and reward strategy there, but I mean I like that midfield. I think that's it's fun. It's got
Yeah,
some
thank you.
different picks in there. What about the
That
defenders
provides me
then?
some reassurance.
Have you got some expensive ones in the defence?
Yeah, so I've got Eight Nuri there. That's probably a fairly obvious pick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, obviously we're all interested in how Manchester City performs defensively this year
Yeah.
because they really didn't last year. But there is a player who we know likes to get forward. He's supported by a team that is good or should be good, and look, an obvious pick, so I won't go on. I've got Kukurea there. Again, I guess a similar player coming up the wing there, or coming up from fullback. And Chelsea has that great run, and again, I don't think it's an unusual pick there. And in the middle, well, on my screen, in the middle, I've got Lacroix, and as we discussed, that's because of that defensive contribution. And then I've got 4 million players, £4 million players on my bench. At the moment, it's Esteve. I'm not sure if he's still the choice at the moment. I haven't looked, but he was. I
He
don't
is,
know how many
yeah,
years
still the
ago. He
popular
is
one.
still. He
Yeah.
is still popular. And then I picked Heaven because he's called Heaven, and I just couldn't resist it. I could not resist it. I just thought, yeah, I've got Heaven on my bench, and if you ever wanted anyone to come on and save the day for you, the last ditch effort when you need your third bench player, Heaven
Ah,
is the one. I just couldn't resist. I don't know how many minutes he'll get, but he's there.
perfect. And then who's between the sticks for you?
So between the sticks, we have Kelleher. I think this is probably not unusual. Yeah, Kelleher and Areola.
Areola, interesting. Yeah, because I was wondering about there's a lack of West Ham defenders who have proved popular, with whether it be Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Juve. They both seem to be
Mm.
providing a lot of interest for FPL managers. So I
Yeah.
guess Areola is nice, and it gives you the rotating pair, so you can avoid the more difficult fixtures, which feels like a decent option as well.
Yeah, I don't. It's funny because I've got a rotating pair, but I don't usually rotate.
Ah,
Um, I genuinely, well, you know how it works, don't you?
yep.
That you take them
Wrong
off
one.
because they're playing Manchester City, and they do 14 saves, save a penalty, and get a million points. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think generally speaking, I tend to just leave them on. But last year I had a non-playing keeper on my bench, and it was just stupid because it's not a move you want to make,
Mm.
really. So I just spent the extra point five on having a playing keeper, or often I have the other. If I have a keeper, I have the second keeper from that team
Yeah.
on my bench. But yeah, okay. So this year I've just gone for the two 4.5s, and whether they're rotating, we will see.
You
Yeah,
could, I
that's
suppose,
it.
you could save yourself point 0.5 when Dubravka finally makes his move to Burnley, which is long reported. Then maybe you can save yourself point 0.5 by having him
I
instead of
would probably do
Areola.
that.
Yeah,
I
if
would
you,
probably do that. Yeah.
yeah,
As a West Ham supporter, I should probably not say that I will. I said no, no. I will. I
I
will
will
keep him. I
stick.
will keep him. I will stick with him no matter what. But as you all know, everybody watching this knows you can't be too sentimental with your
No,
fantasy football. It's the
that's the
Premier League
trouble.
team.
That is the trouble. And as a Spurs fan last year, I learned that very much the hard way because I normally have a rule about having at least one. I have at least
Yeah,
one, even if they're, on the bench and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
There's at
yeah.
least one Spurs shirt sitting there. But last season, well, the least said about last season, actually, for both you and I, probably the better when it
Yeah,
comes to the Premier League. So let's move on, on
yeah.
quickly and hope
No,
that
that
we
was my
both have
worst
better
season ever
years.
last season.
Let's just, before I let you go, let's get one piece of advice from you. So obviously other FPL managers will look at you and the other FPL champions and be like, that is what I am aspiring to by the end of the 25-26 season. So is there a piece of advice you could give them as they look to try and get into your elite band of FPL champions?
So my key piece of advice I actually stole from Simon March, um,
Good
a
person to steal from.
well-known, yeah, a well-known winner, and he has always said consistency is your differential, and I just think that's the best piece of advice that you can ever give. Um, find your approach and keep to it. Keep consistent in the way you make your decisions each week. If you chop and change, if one moment you decide to be statistics, look at statistics. The next week you decide to listen to a podcast and do whatever they say. Next week you decide to just scroll through social media and do whatever the most convincing sounding person
Yeah,
says. The next week, you listen to what Sam Bonfield says. Well,
don't
I'm
do
going to
that.
say, well, what I would say is if you're going to listen to Sam Bonfield, do it every week. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Just so it's just about that consistency, and if you want to pick players because of their by their haircuts or whatever, I actually don't think that's as crazy as it sounds because the whole game is about smoothing out the variance that we
yeah.
get in the game. The only way you do that is by finding a consistent approach so that you can ride out the big swings we get in the game.
Do you know, I think that is a really, really good piece of advice because it's so easy to get distracted by the noise in FPL. Like you can have a plan. And I know that for me, there'll be some weeks where I'm like absolutely set on this is the player. And then there'll be so much noise going on around about somebody else that you start to go, should I go there? But actually it's about just following your plan, having a plan, following it through because there's more than one player that returns points every week. So just because the whole crowd thinks you should be doing one thing, as long as you're following through
Yeah,
on your plan, I think that is
yeah.
a really, really sensible and really good piece of advice. Adam, thank you so much for talking to me today. Good luck this season. Maybe you could become the first FPL champion to win it twice. That would be quite a feat. So I hope you have another good season. We will be back with other interviews with FPL champions over the next week or so in the build up to game week 1. So make sure that you like this video if you've enjoyed it and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you get notified the next time we put one of these videos out. See you later, everyone.